So hi everyone. We are Rick and Maureen. We own Hunterline. Uh, when we do shows, that's been at least 2 years now, and we do what we call a make and take. And with a make and take, we take one of our kits and we take you right from opening the package to the finished product, and that includes staining and gluing and weathering, it, everything that is involved in that kit. Um, Usually at a show when we're doing it, we don't have a lot of time for gluing and staining dry times. So this is great when we can do it virtually. So how we've got this divided up now, it's going to be for the next 7 weeks. So the 7 sessions to this one, they're about 25 minutes or a half hour long. And we're going to take you step by step. Now, if you've seen any of ours in the past, see, we're in an area that has a very, very bad bandwidth, and it's been a little jerky. We know that. So we're trying something different this time. We pre-recorded them, and we have sent them into New Tracks storage, whatever they have there, and they are going to show it. So we're here live to answer any questions or so on. And they're going to be the webmasters are going to be the in control of the different segments. This is what we're doing. So the one that we're building in there is actually this one right here. This is actually S scale because we do it big enough that we can actually see it for the camera. So this is what we're going to be building. Everything, it comes in a kit. It's if you haven't signed up yet and you want to sign up, it's still not too late. We can have it to you within a week. So you might get a week or two behind, but you'll catch up because there's a lot of homework on this one. So anyways, thank you for all the participants that have signed up, and we should get going on this. What do you think, Maureen?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Hi, everyone. This is Rick and Maureen from Hunterline in Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. Welcome to our build along. What we're going to be doing is, you can see in the picture, it's our 50-foot queen post covered bridge. The history on this, it's really kind of neat. It's a queen post underneath, which is just a common everyday bridge back in the mid 1800s. And the reason why they covered them, well, it was to get them out of the elements. Like how rotting wood is caused by moisture and then dryness, and moisture and dryness over and over again. And especially in the winters, it can get really moist and frozen and all that stuff. So they decided the best thing would be to cover it. And so they built like a house type structure, frames and roof and all that stuff. But it added a good 50 years to the integrity of the bridge, which was phenomenal for the time. So instead of replacing it every 10 years, it came up to every 50 years. So Maureen's going to take you through the first session. We're doing actually 6 different sessions to get you to the end result. And the first session, it's kind of get organized, get the workstation up and going, and Maureen's going to take you through some of that.
Hi. So the first thing I wanted to talk a little bit about are the tools that are going to be needed for this kit. And you'll see that quite simply on the box cover or on your bag cover, and also on page 7 in your instructions. Okay, so you can just turn to that, make sure you've got everything that you need. It's that page there, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about a few of the things that I use that might be helpful to you. Let's see, first off, I use a razor saw to do my distressing. And this one is a 42 teeth to an inch razor saw, and it works quite nicely. I like it to do the distressing. There's other things that you can use as well, like wire brushes. I don't know what.
There's all sorts of little things up there to do, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the razor saw. And the other thing that I really find helpful are these little tweezers. I don't know if you can see how pointy they are. The important thing is that they're very sharp and pointy. The ends of that tweezer points come together quite nicely, and this is great for when you're putting in those nut boat washer castings, and we'll talk more about that later when we get to that part of the build. So they really work well, and I like the way it's offset a little bit. It works really well. And the other thing that I have to talk about is the glue. We usually use Titebond, but I couldn't get my hands on any Titebond, so I've got LePage's here, and it's LePage's wood glue. And as long as it says it's high initial tack, I think it works really well. I really do prefer the Titebond, but we're going to use this LePage's wood glue. And I love this little glue bottle. You can get them on Amazon. I don't know, you can get like 6 or 7 of them reasonably cost. It's maybe, I don't know, 10 bucks if that. And they've got little different gauges of needles that you can attach to the bottle. And just the perfect amount comes out when you're gluing, and you don't tend to over glue then. The other thing you need for doing the staining is just a cheap dollar store brush. That's what I use. I like a brush that has a flat end, and yeah, any cheap brush will do. Okay, and a couple of the other tools that that I really like are Al Collins Ultimation Sander. That here. I think some of you have probably already seen this before, but it works really well.
Saves a lot of time and aggravation when you can do them accurately. And then this is the new one that Al Collins has come up with, and this is called the slicer. It's a lot different than a chopper. A chopper, when it comes down, actually breaks the grain of the wood, the fibers of the wood, and crushes them, where this is actually a different process, and it's actually a slicer. It's got what's called a chisel blade in it, which means it cuts on one side of the blade only, but it's deadly accurate, and it's got the repeater on it. So these are available through Al Collins at Ultimation Tools.
So that's a quick synopsis of the
Now
tools.
that the commercial's over with.
Yeah. So I just want to talk a little bit about getting your workspace organized. I use just a big flat, make sure it's a flat board. This is a pressed particle board, I guess.
Why we say a good flat surface, and I tell this story all the time, is one time we were working at a show on a table that I guess you'd call it a sway back. So we're building one of our big Howe 170 Howes, and of course, bridge ended up with a sway back in it. So we learned right then and there, you gotta have a flat surface that stays flat.
And then usually what I do, you'll see in your package that you've got a big drawing with all your different parts of the bridge on there. And what I do is I usually just cut out the piece that I'm working on. So next week we're going to be doing the tie stringer assembly plus the whole bridge component, but I just cut out the top view of the stringer assembly. And what I usually do is just tape the drawing right to the board with masking tape, and then take a piece of wax paper and tape that over top so that you can glue right on this drawing, and you'll protect your drawing. You'll be able to use it again maybe.
You can see the wax paper, it shows you the drawing underneath very well. Why we use wax paper is the glue does not stick to it. So you can glue everything right on the drawing, and the wax paper will not stick to the glue. This is probably as old as the hills of modeling.
So that's
but it still works.
Yeah, a little tip for that. And then if you just kind of look at all your kit components here, you'll see that you've got lots of bags of all the different sizes of lumber in there, and they all have the sizes on them. So what you're going to want to do next is distress all this lumber.
What we mean by distressing, we run the razor saw over it, which puts little grooves into it, which puts a grain into the wood. Basswood is very ungrainful, is that the word?
Yeah,
And
smooth.
so you want to put some grooves in it so that when you stain it, this stain will go into the trough of the groove and be one shade, and the top of the groove, the mountain of the groove, will be another shade. So it gives a lot of contrast on a single piece of wood. And when you're doing board by board construction, it's great because every board has its own character.
So what I'm going to show you is, I'm just going to do one of these packages, and you're going to have a lot of homework to do before the next session, but can't stress enough to make sure that you save your tubings and replace your wood as you distress them and stain them and put them back in the right tube. Make sure you've got the right size in there. So to distress these, I'm going to take my 6x6s. I'm going to get everything else out of the way here. I'm going to take this package first, and I just get my little cutting mat and my razor saw. And just take your razor saw or whatever you're using, and with a fair amount of pressure, just bring it across that wood. And you can see, I don't know that you'll be able to see that, but you can see the grain is popping right up. And do all sides. And you can curve it, swerve it. You can put little knots in it if you want, just bang it.
This is the most boring part of the entire project. It's a necessary evil, and you'll find as you progress along, it's well worth it. If you can't do all the pieces in one sitting, then spread it out over the whole course of the project.
I'm just going to do a few here for you, just to give you an idea. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of fuzz on there, and you can just take that off. Use a little file and cut those pieces off, or trim them off with an X-Acto knife. I don't have much of anything right here. You have to kind of find that right pressure. Not too light and not too heavy. So I'll do 3 here, and then we'll show you how we stain them.
This is what we found in the past, that there's not a great deal of interest when you watch Maureen do 200 pieces of wood. So we're only going to, in these sessions, we're only going to do samples of what needs to be done. And then the rest is going to be homework.
So you would do this with all your lumber. Okay, I'm just going to do it on those 3, and of course going to keep them alongside my 6x6 tubing. And I want to stress to you that you're going to find 2 packages for your roofing material. You've got your shakes and your
Sheathing.
sheathing. Yeah. Don't I mean, you certainly don't have to distress the sheathing, and I don't know that you need to do the shakes either.
The important thing here is do not stain the shakes. That is a process near the end of the project. So do not stain the shakes.
Yeah. Leave that to the end. It's just that if you stain them first, they are going to warp a little bit, and it makes it much more difficult to glue them to the sheathing. So just leave them alone. Don't stain them now.
So yes, we make all our own stains. It's called Weather and Mix. That's our brand name. And it's a 70% isopropyl alcohol base with leather dyes. We do not use inks. That's another lesson in a different type of a product. So we use leather dye and 70% isopropyl alcohol. People ask us, why don't we use 91 or the 99? It's not a great deal of difference except for the cost. So to keep the cost down on the whole project, we use the 70%. You won't need to get it. You just use it straight out of the bottle.
Yeah, so for this project, I've decided, usually what I do is I'll start out staining all my color with all my wood with a lighter color, so that afterwards when I've got the project put together, I can go back and do some dry brushing with different colors of stain, put maybe, you know, a little bit of black, where the dark shadows would be under the eaves and whatnot. So you can kind of decide that later, how you want to approach that, and we'll show you that at the end of the model building. So I'm going to start out mine with a light gray, and just give the bottle a good shake. And I use a disposable dish just to pour the stain into. So pour a little bit in there.
Don't forget to put cap on tight.
Yeah, if you're using it open right from the jar, put your bottle inside a big roll of tape, so it's less easy to tip over. I found that out the hard way.
Yeah.
So take your cheap brush, and what I do is I just kind of hold that lumber in the dish.
We do stress the cheap brush. Like, don't spend a lot of money on a good brush, and then this will just kind of wreck it over the years. So we just use, if you can get a dozen of them for $1, that's great.
Some people have a long tube that you can put your stain in, and then just put all your lumber in there and shake it up, and it comes out very quickly. Doesn't really take a lot of time.
And it will dry a little lighter than what it is when you apply it.
Make sure you put your gloves on. Save you having stained hands for a week or two. And make sure you've got lots of paper towels handy, or newspaper. Something to lay your wood on to dry. Doesn't take long to dry. You know, usually, well, I usually distress and stain all my lumber first before I start building the project.
And there's two different trains of thought here. Like, we stain all the wood full length before we cut it up.
Yeah.
Because when you cut it up, okay, that's going to leave a raw edge. Well, you do that at the end, and usually that raw edge is a different texture and color than the rest of the wood anyways. So that's a touch-up that can be done later.
Yeah. So just lay your wood out to dry then. And you to clean up your brush, actually, I don't really do too much. I just wipe it off on a paper towel. You can certainly wash it in soap and water if you want to, but I don't tend to bother unless I'm going to use that brush for one of our other colors, like a cottage white or something. But then I usually have a separate brush for that. But you just have to wipe it off and it'll be fine. So then you just let that dry, and then next week what we're going to do is we're going to take you through doing the actual building of the tie stringer assembly and the Queen Post bridge itself. So
you're dealing with two different structures altogether. The bridge itself, and then the housing that goes around it, the actual the covering of it, which is basically like a house type of construction. So you build one, you build the other, and then near the end, they all come together as one assembly. Try not to get too far ahead of it. Yes, the instructions are detailed and complete, but we prefer with a build along to actually build it with us, even if you watch it, you know, like a week or two from now.
I think that's probably it for tonight. I think that covers it. So we will be taking your questions if you have any after this video is done. So thank you for joining us.
All right, we'll see you next week. Thanks. There, I think we're on again. Go back to this mute and unmute thing. That's our session one. It's probably a repeat for all the fellows who had participated last time, but you might have learned something too. So anyways, Jim, that's session one. Next week we'll do session two and start the build.
Does anybody have any questions for Rick or Marie?
I see some on the chat line here. I'll try to finish up answering them on the chat line, I guess.
Yeah.
Save you time there, Jim. But if there's
Okay.
anything else, just ask us.
I've got a couple of questions, if you don't mind, and I'm sure you may have covered this before. If so, I apologize. I don't remember, but I'm interested in the answer. What's the difference between a king post and a queen post?
That's a good question. It's fair. And you know what? The king and the queen post, the bridge, is exactly the same as the king and the queen post on the brake system underneath any type of a car, a rail car. A king post is one vertical rod, one set of vertical rods, where a queen post is multiple ones. So all a queen post is a king post elongated. But
Okay.
the queen can have more than two posts. She can have 3 or 4 different posts.
Got it. Let me ask you this. When was this kind of a bridge in use? I mean, what is the time period for this use of the bridge?
The time period's really in the early 1800s, like when Howe invented his bridge was in 1840. So this is kind of 1830s, 1820s, right at the very beginning. But it's like anything in modeling. It went on in time. Like a year is hard to pin down. And I've spoken to all our people who are in this before, that I cannot find a prototypical picture of the Queen Post railroad covered bridge. I can find every other thing. I can find Queen Post road bridges, but I can't find any images of a Queen Post train bridge, even though I know they existed.
Is there a reason for that, Rick? I mean, why weren't they popular, or what's the issue?
Oh yeah, they were absolutely everywhere. The King and the Queen Post were the most popular bridges in the mid 1800s, before Howe got into his. But they were just everywhere. There was thousands of them throughout Canada and the United States. They were short-lived because they couldn't bear the weight of the locomotive. The locomotive being the heaviest part of any consist, the integrity of the bridge had to hold the locomotive. Didn't matter about cars. And as locomotives got heavier and heavier and heavier, they just beefed up the King and the Queen, like 1 rod to 2 rods to 3 rods. I've seen pictures of up to 6 rods in a row to beef up, and then they just couldn't beef it up anymore. So down came the bridge, and up went the steel and concrete.
Got it. Well, thank you so much for tonight. I look forward to next week.